In this tutorial, we will have a look how we can add audio to our game, as well as how we can change the volume, and we're gonna have a look how we can save our volume if we start our game for the next time. As you can notice, we're gonna create this, and before I jump into this tutorial, I want to thank Kneth for donating me on Patreon. And if you guys want to do that, then you can do on Patreon, and by that you will unlock many benefits. And also make sure I have some Udemy courses in the description, so make sure you just go and check that out. So let's get into this tutorial. So we're gonna do, we're gonna create an empty game object in our hierarchy tab in order to play our audio. So I'm gonna move over to my hierarchy. So right click or hit this plus icon, and we're gonna create an empty game object, and let's call this game object to something like audio. So let's call it audio. Let's go over to inspector, then transform. Let's right click on it and then reset. So we just resetting the position, and if you want to choose an icon, then go over to inspector, then click here and you can choose the icon, and we can simply press down F on our keyboard in order to focus on it. As you can notice, we have it over here. So in order to play our audio, we need to attach a component called audio source. So we basically need to select our audio, basically any game object in our hierarchy, then go over to inspector and then click on this click on this add component, and you can find the component by typing name of the component, which is audio source, and we're gonna attach that. And we can see audio resource, and it says none audio resource. Basically you need to drag the clip, which clip you just want to play or the theme. So for that, I'm gonna move over to my project tab, assets, and then audio folder. I have many audios for this, as you can notice. So I'm gonna select any of them. Let's select this one. Let's drag it over to this slot, and it's called audio resource. And we have done the thing. And if we just go ahead and then click on this play button, you will able to notice that you will able to hear the music right after the game start, and this will be our theme. So we can just name that to theme like that. So wait a moment. So as you can hear the music, and I'm gonna get out of play mode so we can hear the music. And if you want your theme to be loop, then make sure you go to inspector, then audio source, and then check this loop. And if you uncheck this play on away, the basically the audio not gonna play right after the game start. So if I uncheck play on away and then play our game, you will able to hear, you will able to notice that our audio not gonna play at all right after the game start. But if we leave it check on leave it with check, then it's gonna play. As you can notice, indeed the our theme is not playing at all. So I'm gonna get out of play mode, and I'm gonna leave the play on awake as check. Basically I want to play the audio right after the game starts, so that's why I just take this. And now we need to change the volume of it, volume of it. So before we do, what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a slider inside this panel or inside this background, and we're gonna control the volume with that slider. To do that, what you need to do, firstly you need to create the canvas. So basically move over to hierarchy, right click or hit this plus icon, then go over to UI and then select this canvas in the bottom. And after doing that, make sure you select your canvas, then go over to inspector, then go over to this canvas scaler component and choose UI scale mode to scale with the screen size, and in the width or X put 1920, and in the Y put 1080 in the height. And if your game in portrait mode, then you can just swipe this value. So make sure you just do that. And after doing it that, right click on this canvas, then create an empty game object, then go over to inspector, rake transform, and then click over here and hold down alt on your keyboard and select this bottom right one. And as soon as we have chosen, this game object just gets resized as the size of our canvas. So I already done it, so I'm gonna select that one and I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna select my BG, I want our slider inside this BG or this panel. So that's why I'm gonna select this BG. Let's right click on it, then go to UI, then slider right over here. You can notice. So just click on it in order to add that. And we're gonna call it something like volume slider. So let's move over to inspector and let's call this one volume underscore slider, something like that. And we need to increase the size of it, so we're gonna select the rake tool in our scene view, and let's select this volume slider, and we're gonna hold down alt on our keyboard to resize it from center, as you can notice. And we need to adjust this handle slide area. Basically just click over here and we're gonna move over to handle slide area, then click here and we're gonna choose the handle, and we're gonna hold down also, it's gonna resize from center, as you can notice. So it seems pretty much fine by now, and we can just move over to volume slider, then go over to inspector, and if we scroll down to the slider component, we can see on value chain. So we just want to control with this, as we can notice that. And what we have to do, basically I want to change the color of this background. So basically I'm going to select the background inside this volume slider, then go over to inspector image component, and you can click on this color and you can choose the color that you want. So I'm going to choose this one. As you can see, this seems pretty much fine, and I guess this is fine. So once you are satisfied, then make sure you just go over to your parent game object, then go over to inspector overrides, and then apply all if you turn it into a parent, if you turn it your menu into a parent, or basically the game object. Now we want to control our volume with our slider. So before I do, I'm gonna move over to inspector, then apply all. Now this is fine. So firstly I'm gonna select my volume slider, then go over to inspector slider component, and I'm gonna drag all the way to the right side, something like this. And if we just go ahead and then click on this play button, we can just move this handle slide area to the left or right side. Basically we can adjust the value, and you're gonna able to notice that. And we're gonna link that up with our volume, so we can see this is working fine. So let's get out of play mode, and now what we're gonna do, we need a reference of this volume slider, then we can adjust it. So we're going to create a script for it. So to do that, move over to your project tab, assets, then right click, create mono behavior script, and you can name that script whatever you like. Name it to something like audio manager, and I already created that script right over here, as you can notice. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select my audio game object in the hierarchy, and let's select that script and drag it over to add component section in the inspector. So now what we need, we're gonna open up our audio manager script by double clicking on it. So first thing we need a reference of this audio source. Basically this, as you can notice, we have the audio source and we have the clip right over here, basically the theme. So we need a reference of it, as well as we need a reference of this volume slider. And this volume slider, we can notice this is an UI element, so we need to include the UI using unity engine.ui namespace as well. So let's open up our script by double clicking on it, and let's go to top of our class. And since we're gonna work with UI, so we need to use this namespace. It's called using unity engine.ui. So we need a reference of that slider, so let's make it over here. So we're gonna make a public, and that is a slider. So we're gonna type this slider, and we can call this one volume slider. So let's call it volume underscore slider, something like that. And let's close that off with semicolon. And we also need a reference of that audio source component. So we're gonna make another public, and the component we're looking for is a audio source. So we're gonna type that, and we can call this one audio underscore source, something like that. Sorry, audio underscore source. And let's close that up with semicolon, and we're gonna press down Ctrl S to save our script, and then we're gonna move over to Unity. So underneath our audio manager script, we will able to notice two field. First will be our volume slider, and the second will be our audio source. So we basically need to drag one by one the reference, and after that we can just play around with the volume. So just wait a minute, and we're gonna see. So we can notice underneath our audio manager script, we can see volume slider. So we're gonna take our volume slider, let's drag it over to this volume slider field, and let's take our audio source and let's drag it over to that field. Now we have the reference both of this, and we can change the volume. So what we're gonna do, so before we do, if we select our main camera, then go over to inspector, we can see a audio listener attached to this main camera. So this audio listener component is responsible for taking our audio or the clip and playing the clip. So what we basically need to do, we basically need to move over to this audio listener, and then we can basically play around with the volume. So we're gonna move over to our script, and let's remove this update function. We don't need, but we're gonna use this start function. So let's do it over here, and we're gonna call this function something like change volume, and we will make this function public since we're gonna call this function inside our volume slider. So if I select my volume slider, then go over to inspector slider component, we can call the function on value change, as you can notice right over here. So we can call the function here. So that's why we need to make that function public. So let's make public for function. We're gonna type void, and then we have to name the function. So we're gonna call it something like change volume. Let's make first bracket and some curly brackets. And what we want to do over here, we basically want to change the volume, and in order to change the volume, we basically need to move over to audio listener, as you seen inside our main camera. So we will go to audio listener, then we're gonna access the volume. So let's access the volume, and we're gonna set the volume equal to our volume slider, or with the value of this slider. So if I select my slider, then go over to inspector, we just want to set with this slider the value with this. So that's why we're gonna going over to our volume slider, and dot, we're gonna access the value, and let's close that up with semicolon. So let's suppose we just drag it our volume slider something around like 0.5. So this one becomes 0.5. So that's why this volume audio listener dot volume, it's gonna be 0.5, because we directly setting it, as you can notice. So it's basically means our volume just gonna be down something like 0.5. And let's suppose we drag our volume slider all the way to the right side. So it's gonna be 1, basically means we are in full volume. And let's suppose we drag this volume slider all the way to the left side, like this, it seems 0. So this one right over here became 0. So that's why the volume of our game, it's gonna be 0. And now what we're gonna do, we're gonna press down Ctrl S to save our script. And now let's move over to Unity. So it's basically just gonna depend upon on our value of this volume slider. If the volume slider volume is 0.5, then the music or the theme just gonna be 0.5, basically half something like that. But I'm gonna drag by default all the way to the right side. So I'm gonna select my volume slider, let's drag it this value to the right side. And now what we need to do, we need to call this function, and this function basically just gonna change our volume. So let's call that function. To call it, let's click on this plus icon in our volume slider, and we need to drag the game object in which game object the script is attached. So in our case audio, if I select my audio game object in the hierarchy, as you can notice, audio manager script is sitting on this audio game object. So I'm going to select my volume slider, and let's select this audio game object, let's drag it there, and it says no function. So let's click there, let's go over to audio manager script, and then we can see the function right over here, and it says change volume. So let's choose that. Basically means whenever we're gonna play around with this volume slider, our volume of the game or that theme just gonna be half, 0, or whatever we just set with our volume slider. So let's click on this play button, and you're gonna able to notice that. So just wait. So now if I we're gonna able to hear the theme right away, and indeed, and if I drag it down, as you can notice the volume gets down, so we can just play around. But the problem is that if I set the volume to half and then get out of play mode and then click on this play button in the top, you will see that the volume slider will not be set like that. Basically means we're gonna lose our data that we save, and we want to save the volume for future even if we start our game for the next time. So as you can see, it's not safe at all. So we're gonna get out of play mode, and in order to save the volume, when we get out from the play mode and then play our game one more time, we want the volume previously what we set. So for that, what we're gonna do, we're gonna use player preps. So we will move over to this start function. So this start function get called in the start of the game. So in the start of the game, what we just want our full volume. So we're gonna use this player preps dot set float function. And this set float function, basically player preps dot set float function, it's basically a function in order to get or to save the changes. As a first argument, it's gonna take the key in which key you just want to save your data. So I'm gonna set save with volume, something like this, but you can type whatever you like. Basically you need to save the audio in that key, so that's why. And the second thing, player set float, sorry, we're not going to use this set float. Instead we need to use this get float, because in the start of the game we're not going to able to basically get the set the volume, so that's why. So we need to use this player preps dot get float function, and this function as a first argument, it's going to take the key in which key you want to save your volume, and the second thing, it's going to take the value. So we're gonna set it to directly 1f, or we can simply let's set it to 1f, because in the start of the game we want our game to be full volume, so that's why. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna set equal, so we're gonna save this data in our volume slider. So we're gonna set volume slider dot value equal to this. So so basically what we're doing, we basically just moving over to this volume slider and then accessing this value, and we're setting this value equal to player flaps dot get volume. So in the start of the game we just getting the default value, which is 1f, means the full volume. And now what we need to do, we need to set the float. Basically we need to we need to set the volume. To set that, we're going to move over to this change volume function, and inside this function we basically want to save the volume slider as well as the volume. So to set that, we need to use this player preps. So we have to use this player preps dot set float function, and this function as a first argument, it's gonna take the key in which key you just save your data. So in our case we need to pass the same key, which is volume. So and the second thing, it's gonna take the value, so that value just gonna be our volume slider. So we're gonna just move over to our volume slider and we're gonna access the value, so dot value, and let's close that up with semicolon. And what we can do now, by now, so we're gonna set so basically this is fine, so we can just go ahead. Now we just save our volume. So audio listener dot volume slider, and we just set the volume, as you can notice, a volume slider dot value, and we're saving this volume slider dot value, basically the volume, into this volume parameter. So firstly we use this start function, so in order to get the default volume, and we just use this change volume in order to set the volume, as well as if we get out of play mode we can see the previous saved data. And now we're gonna press down Ctrl S to save our scape, and we're gonna move over to Unity, and you will able to notice that we will saved our volume. So just wait a moment, and once it's done we can just go ahead and check that out, and we will able to notice our volume. So just wait, and I guess this is fine. And now let's what we can do, let's click sorry let's click on this play button in the top, and let's have a look. So we're gonna set the volume of our game half, like zero point 0.5, and we're gonna get out of play mode, and we should see it's gonna be zero point 0.5 when we start for the next time. So I'm gonna set it to half. So let's set it to something like this. And if I get out of play mode and then click on this play button in the top in order to play our game one more time, we should able to notice our volume just gonna be zero point 0.5 as we previously saved in our game, inside our game. So let's have a look on this. So as you can notice, indeed the volume is just setting. So I hope you get the idea that how you can do it and how you can save it. And if it still seems for you a little bit, you can simply say I'm gonna get out of play mode, something like so. If I just click on this play button one more time, so by now we should not able to hear the volume because we just set it to 0. So if we get an bug, then we need to do something. So I hope it's gonna work out. So basically it's working out perfectly. So we're gonna get out of play mode. So I hope you get the idea that how you can just play around with the volume and how you can save a volume in your game or for your theme, for your SFX or whatever. So I hope you get the idea how you can set your volume in your game, and I will see you in the next tutorial.